As I mentioned, Tom is our assistant managing editor. He directs not only Chicago Real Estate Daily, but Crain's expanded health coverage in print and online through chicagohealthcaredaily.com. He's covered commercial real estate for more than a decade, both at Crain's and the Chicago Tribune, and earlier, Tom spent 7 years as a practicing attorney. Now it's a pleasure to introduce Larry Levy, who is not only one of the most influential Chicago business figures of his generation, but someone I've been fortunate to consider a friend for nearly 3 decades. Today, we all know Larry is someone who has prospered in 2 of the most treacherous industries, restaurants and real estate. But Larry's entrepreneurial roots date back to his childhood in St. Louis. At age 6, he became a door-to-door salesman of potholders made by his aunt. Then Larry graduated to selling magazine subscriptions before he was 10. In high school, he earned money by marketing discount coupons to fellow students who could use them at local stores. And this didn't stop when he went off to college at Northwestern University. Larry actually bought a derailed train load of high-intensity lamps, sold them on campus, and made more than $800, which wasn't a bad haul in the late 1960s. His first job was in marketing at Hartshafter & Marks. This introduced Larry not only to the apparel business, but to real estate and the idea of having your store in the right location. It was that critical experience that helped trigger a lifelong interest in real estate. He got his first job in the industry by joining Hawthorne Realty Group as an industrial broker. But Larry quickly worked his way to the top, becoming president and a partner in what was then one of Chicago's most active real estate firms. While there, his entrepreneurial mind, always seeing the next opportunity, identified a gap in the Chicago restaurant market. Larry and his brother Mark invested in a restaurant in Water Tower Place that some of you may remember, D.B. Kaplan's. When the operation began to lose money, Larry had to learn the restaurant business and learn it fast. He did what many savvy business people would do. He brought in an expert to fix it, and that was his mother, Edie Levy, who had the best recipes he had ever tasted. He also left Hawthorne and founded the Levy organization and its Levy Restaurants Group in 1978. After returning Kaplan's to profitability in just a few years, Larry was approached by Water Tower Place, which wanted him to take over its money-losing restaurant business. The rest, as they say, is history. Today, Larry remains chairman and co-founder of Levy Restaurants, which has since been purchased by London-based Compass Group. This operation includes places we all love, including Spiaggia and Fulton Crab House, as well as offering high-quality eating experiences at 30 sports arenas, 12 ballparks, 11 event centers, 11 more racetracks, 10 stadiums, and 3 colleges. Now, this kind of restaurant career would have been enough for most of us, but Larry was concurrently becoming an increasingly important player in the Chicago real estate world. Through the Levy organization in 1983, he completed the development of One Magnificent Mile. This $100 million project was the first to ever offer Chicago condominiums for $1 million. Further projects included the Woodfill Lake Office Complex in Schaumburg, Waterfall Glen Office Park, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center, and the Butterfield Center for Business. Right now, the Levy organization is the managing partner for River Point, a 2 million square foot mixed-use development on the Chicago River. And he was also a key investor in One South Dearborn, the home of Sidley and Austin, which was completed in 2005. Larry has helped guide the Chicago real estate market for more than 3 decades. His experience, as well as his insights into what's happening today, and more importantly, what's happening tomorrow, is what you all have come here to learn today. So I'm happy to turn this morning over to Larry and Tom. They will start with an informal discussion, after which they will take questions.
I want to start by talking about Riverbend, now River Point. This is the site on the west bank of the river where it branches north and south. In May, Ivanhoe Cambridge, the real estate arm of a Canadian pension fund manager that I can't pronounce, announced that they were going to finance the project. The Wall Street Journal reports they would contribute up to $300 million in equity. Now, this is a site that you've owned since 1990, so I wouldn't expect anybody to rush into anything. But when would you start construction on that project?
We're going to start construction in December. The bids for the first phase have already been taken, and they came in right on. And you're going to see mobilization in December.
And this is a $500 million project, more than?
More like 400, but
400?
I hope.
Well, let's go. Yeah, well, 400 now.
Yeah.
And the first phase will be?
So, first of all, I'm not the managing partner of River Point. Heinz is the managing partner of River Point. Some of the Heinz people are here today. And they are brilliant. We're very lucky to have their most productive office here in Chicago. Heinz, we were going to build this building. My biggest disappointment my whole career was in 2008. This building was 65% pre-leased to two of Chicago's top 10 tenants.
Baker and McKenzie.
Baker McKenzie and William Blair. And the equity was all in place, and we couldn't find 5 banks in the U.S. or in the world to fund $250 million construction loan, because if you recall, in November of 2008, a dollar loaned in real estate was considered lost, or you'd get demerits in the stock market or whatever. So it was really shocking. I don't think there's ever been a time in my very long career that a 65% pre-lease building to AAA tenants could not get financed.
You were looking at the time for about a $330 million construction loan?
$250 million.
$250
construction
million.
loan. Am I right, Craig? I think it was. And 5 banks signed up, said they're going to do it, going to commit. We paid our fees, and they couldn't come through. So it was a very shocking time, and we lost a lot of money. And the proudest thing and the most ironic thing is here, now we're going to be the first building built, the only building built, I think, but we'll see. And it's going to be built all equity. F the banks, as they say.
Why not now? I mean, all equity because the credit market still won't support a new project?
Well,
why not go to debt financing now?
Because my guess is toward the end we probably will go to some debt financing. I'm not saying that we're happily doing it this way, but it just makes sense to go forward. We're working with enough prospects to fill the building. We hope we'll have some announcements fairly soon, and it just seems like the right thing to do. It's just one more complication that we don't need. We're building over Amtrak, the main commuter lines. So back to your question, we're building a bridge over the railroad tracks. We now have a missing tooth in Chicago at Lake and Canal where the trains come through. You won't see the trains. We're building a bridge over it. We're going to build that first. We're going to use the parking lot as a staging area. So we're building the building in 2 phases. So the main construction you'll see for the first 6 months is the bridge over the tracks. And then we'll go up with a tower. And we made one other change. We're building the parking above grade so that we can build faster, very similar to 1 South Dearborn. And you'll see, I think the iconic building of this generation will be River Point. It's a beautiful building.
Now, 1 million square feet, roughly?
Roughly.
Is the market ready for a new office building?
I hope so. I think so.
Between the recession in the early 90s, we went 9 years without another office building being built. You're really putting things on the fast track on this. To some extent, all equity will certainly is going to hurt for you a little bit. You've had to give up some equity then. I'm assuming they're not purely...
We paid for our equity, they paid for their equity. Mm-hmm. It's actually an old-fashioned deal, the way they did it 100 years ago. Did you have any second thoughts? Did you have any second thoughts about giving up some of the equity to Ivanhoe Cambridge in order to get the deal done? I don't think we gave up some of the equity.
Oh, you did?
I mean, they own a part and we own a part, but we paid for our part and they paid for their part.
Okay.
If you're asking me, am I happy I have so much money invested in one real estate development? No. But I think it will pay off quite well.
Now, and because you one time, you one time told me, you look where I buy land 20 years ago and wait for something to happen.
Yeah, I'm always ahead of my time.
And this is a good.
Yeah.
You bought this site in 1990.
Actually, 1989.
1989.
Won't quibble.
You replaced Carl Meitzen. Remember him?
I do.
Had an option.
The late Carl Meitzen.
$6.8 million. Now, was it 97 or 98, you sold off a portion of the site for the condo building that
Yes.
reduced your basis, but you've still had...
I had no basis anymore.
And you, because of that transaction, and you have parking, so you've been able to kind of hold tight.
Yeah, we have 200,000 in taxes and 300,000 in parking revenue. It's not a good deal.
Let me shift gears from a tough deal to the restaurant business.
Tougher deal.
David mentioned DB Kaplan's, which you invested in 1978. Part of the lore, the operator, who old-timers may remember Hemingway's Movable Feast in Lincoln Park, which was a very successful place, so not without some track record. When the restaurant opens and it's flailing, I mean, as a monetary thing, you decide to step in. When did you think you were going to get into the restaurant business?
I didn't think I was going to get in the restaurant business. I thought it'd be a fun business to be a partner in. My family always talked about food like restaurant people in St. Louis. And we went in the business, and it was, nobody believed in Water Tower when it first opened, and very few people remember that. So we were the only tenant on the 7th floor. And a very unusual thing happened. They have those fabulous elevators. People would go to the 7th floor. We were the only tenant, so they found us. And then they would escalate down the beautiful escalator system. And we were busy from day one. And the person we hired to be the managing partner didn't know what he was doing. So we did step in. I should tell you that I got 20 people to put up $5,000 each. They were all people that I knew well, and borrowed $300,000 from a bank that I personally guaranteed. So I was going to lose my friends, and I was going to lose my money. And so that's why we stepped in. And did it with my brother, and we decided that and discovered that it was really a fun business, and we loved it. We fixed it almost instantly, and it was a thriving success for many, many years.
Now, was it when you had the opportunity to expand with more restaurants in Water Tower that you and Mark, your brother, decided maybe we should explore this?
Actually, it was more defensive. We were worried that when Marshall Fields and the owners of Water Tower ran the mezzanine level, now it's Food Life, but we created Chestnut Street Grill, Hillary's, and Eternity there. And we did that because we were afraid it was going to hurt D.B. Kaplan's business. D.B. Kaplan's was making over $500,000 a year, which was a lot of money in the early 80s.
I mean, I guess I can't convey the buzz that D.B. Kaplan's created in, as you're saying, in a mall that, aside from the department stores, was mostly empty.
Yes.
I mean, it's a much different place than it is now.
Right.
And it's even odd when you think about it that people would go up to the 7th floor. I mean, there wasn't much there were theaters, right? Was
the theaters were on the second floor, or the mezzanine.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't all that much to do other than to see this amazing first vertical mall.
Yeah, but it points out how stupid we were to pick the 7th floor to put a high-volume restaurant.
Now, let me move forward 4 years to what I think, to 1982, when you won the concessions for food, won the contract for the food concessions at Comiskey Park. Was there a formal RFP process for that?
It was, I would call it a formal begging, and it wasn't by me. Jerry Reinsdorf just bought the White Sox. He said that we're going to spend a lot of money on players, and we're going to win the World Series, and we're going to build 17 skyboxes. We didn't get the concessions
Did
for
he
the
tell you
food.
then it would take until 2005?
No, that's the end of my story, the punchline of my story. Because
I'm stealing the punchline.
in 2005,
let me get out of the way.
Carol and I were in Shanghai watching it on television instead of sitting in the front row where he promised we would be when he won the World Series. And we're still waiting for the Cubs, where we also do the food. And unfortunately, that might take a while longer. But we said no. We're restaurateurs. We don't do that. And fortunately, Jerry convinced us to do the skyboxes at the White Sox. 5 years later, we got the skyboxes in the Stadium Club at Wrigley Field. We had some restaurants succeeded, some were okay, some failed, and some senior leaders of what was then a company, not just a restaurant, we did an offsite, and Truth and Candor said, now let's look at the White Sox. There were now 34 skyboxes. You're making $300,000 a year. We put $1.5 million into a restaurant and take our chances. Let's look at the national scene. And there was this new wave of baseball stadiums and football stadiums and basketball and hockey arenas and NASCAR tracks.
So you benefited from the timing, the stadium boom.
We were we combined real estate and restaurants then. And what happened is the people that worked with me on One Magnificent Mile became the experts on stadium food service design and construction. A person that builds a stadium is almost doing that, almost for sure doing it once in a career. So our expertise became invaluable, and we always threw that in the deal. So we started working on many of these stadiums and arenas 3 years before they opened, and we wound up with the perfect food service design and wound up building $1 billion business around stadium food service.
And now, you know, with a lot of startup companies now, particularly in the tech field, you know, they have these, you know, the idea is really complicated, more than not that it's so complicated I can't really understand. But the concession business, you really had a very simple idea.
Yeah, it's the simplest idea. Is find a place where people have low expectations. And nobody had lower expectations than when they went to a ballpark because of a cold hot dog, a stale bun. And so what really happened that was really shocking. So here's how the food got to Comiskey Park. We had 4 restaurants in Water Tower Place, 5 restaurants in Water Tower Place. We would take an order the day before. We'd cook it in Water Tower Place the day before. We bought a $6,500 panel truck, they called them in those days, delivered the food to Comiskey Park, heated it up, and the comments back were, "You guys are geniuses. This food is great." And we couldn't understand it, because if we served that same food in the restaurants, people would say, you know, it's not as good as usual. And what we realized is people had low expectations. So you can either be brilliant and compete against Rich Melman and try to make your food better than his food, or you can compete against Aramark and Sports Service, who don't know anything about food. They know how to count cups and get, you know, every metric right for running an efficient business. And we counted on 2 things as we grew the business, and the second one was more important than the first. We always had the best food in sports, but we always had Chicago hospitality, and we never underestimated what that was. So last weekend at the US Open tennis tournament, where we did $23 million in sales in 13 days to the fanciest people in New York, the feedback is, what great service, what nice people. And we learned it all here in Chicago.
In 1989, Frontenac, the investment firm, buys a stake in the company at the time, and with that money, helps fuel expansion, really remarkable period of growth. Reportedly, when they bought in, revenues were $45 million. They grew tenfold by 2000. 1992, Allstate Venture Capital invested as well. In 2000, Compass Group bought a 49% stake. Frontenac ready to get out at that point, right? Did you have trepidation about bringing on Compass as a partner?
Sure.
Because, you know, I mean, a little bit they'd be kind of like the, you know, they'd be like the, you know, big dumb food company that we always made fun of.
Exactly. Compass, let me give you a little more detail. My brother left the company in 1998. I bought my brother out. Frontenac was in the 9th year of a 7-year fund. They wanted to sell. Private equity funds have a life expectancy. And Allstate didn't like our business model. So by 2000, when I sold 49%, I wound up being the owner of the other 51%, essentially, with management. So after I sold the first 49%, I actually owned more than I did before. And the Compass, we talked to a whole bunch of people because we were growing very quickly. We had a model that was working. Food service was not a high growth business. We were the fastest growing food service company for 10 straight years in America. And
but as a company, it has to grow by expansion.
yes,
right? I mean, it
has to grow by expansion. And first we grew without capital, and then we were making good money and reinvesting it. I never had a lot of money, but the business kept making a lot of money. The equity kept growing.
We'll get to your money part in a minute.
No. I don't talk about my money part. But
I don't want him to feel like, you know, this is a benefit for you.
No, I'm not. Thanks for the benefit. So Compass said to us, you know, we're going to give you a menu of things we can do for you, and we're going to leave you alone and take anything you want. By the way, we buy insurance for about 2/3 of what you pay. We borrow at 20 over LIBOR. You borrow at 2.5 over prime. We do acquisitions all the time. We can find you some acquisitions. Anyway, they turned out to be a phenomenal partner. And both of us underestimated the synergy. And one of my proudest things is, since I sold the company, if you go to a cricket match in London, a rugby match in London, you go to the Stade de France in Paris, the food is by Levy restaurants. And it's what Compass, they rebranded all the European operations after Levy restaurants after we sold. So they're, not only were they great in the 6 years where we were equal partners, so to speak, they've done a great job with the company, and they're great partners.
You sold the remaining 51% in 2006.
Yes.
Reportedly for $250 million. Just that was a good day. The remained CEO, chairman and CEO, stepped down as CEO.
I'm not CEO. I actually
stepped down.
Fired myself as CEO 3 years before I sold the last half.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's a much better CEO.
How did you take the news? How did you tell yourself?
Actually,
Larry, I'd like to talk about the future of the company.
Is that 25,000 people is not for an entrepreneur to run that company. I've never been a great operator.
You can put it in your packet.
I'm a very good conceptualist and creative, but Andy Lansing is an incredible CEO of Levy Restaurants. He still is. Of the 50 people, by the way, that split up a good part of that money, who were the management, sweat equity guys, only 2 have left. Really amazing. It's 6 years later. So that means they love their jobs.
Let me turn back to real estate and 1 Mag Mile. This was a project, you know, you talk about your experience with recessions on River Point. 1 Mag Mile, you went through 2 recessions in the 80s, in the early 80s on this project, $120 million development. I had forgotten until I looked up, designed by Bruce Graham, the famed Skidmore architect. And when you know that, and now I look at it, you can see kind of Bruce Graham touches. And
Faz Khan was a structural architect who did Sears Tower and the Hancock Building, so you can see that too.
As David mentioned, first $1 million condos into the Chicago market you sold I think that was 1981. Just as a sign of how tough, and just to put things in context, 1981, first $1 million condos, that's also the year you bought Hillman's, right? I think we had 2 recessions in 1982. Retail space opened in 83. That's the year you sold Hillman's. It was a deal. It was a development that was really a fight from beginning to end because of the tough economy. Yes.
One Magnificent Mile.
Yeah.
Oh, I only build in recessions, so you've reminded me of the timing of 2 of my biggest developments. No, One Magnificent Mile. First of all, I was very young. The prime interest rate. You know, we are living in historically low interest rates. I started construction.
They were in their teens.
Prime interest rate was 10% when I started construction, and 90 days later it was 21%. But I only borrowed $100 million.
Well, good thing you didn't borrow more. Eventually you sold to your partner in 1985. Now, when you look at the building, I mean, it still, people know you as the guy that built One Mag Mile?
Yeah. I think it's a beautiful building. I still have my office there. My mother still lives in the building. I think it's an iconic building. I think it does a beautiful job. Bruce and I worked on this of turning Michigan Avenue corner into Oak Street, another important street that we have. It keeps the rectilinear grid of Chicago while still facing into one of our most important highlights in Chicago, which is the Oak Street Beach in Lake Michigan. And I think it really did a good job. But very difficult time to be building. My cheapest apartment was $500,000, and there was a period of time in Chicago where no condominium sold for $500,000 or more. 2 years.
We think of how, like, for example, Trump pushed the market more recently in terms of price, but One Mag Mile really kind of pushed the market then.
There was no market. That's what I'm trying to say. You couldn't push any market. I mean, that was before we started, we pushed the market. But once we got going, it was unbelievable.
And I read where, on the residential portion, that, you know, you used as, you studied Water Tower Place. You know, we think developers, entrepreneurs think they have to kind of reinvent everything, when a lot of time there's a model for you to work off of right under your nose, right?
That was my model. You're right. And it was evolutionary, not revolutionary.
Yeah.
And the difference is, in One Magnificent Mile, we had some rooms that were pentagon-shaped because the building turns the corner at a 45-degree angle. And Bruce and I and a name from the past, Dick Barancik, was the residential architect.
An architect and a developer as well. Barancik, right?
And some of the most memorable meetings of my life were with Bruce and Dick in the same meeting, and I was the referee. You know, I just needed a shirt with black and white stripes.
Let me shift back to growing up in St. Louis now. Your dad was a record distributor. Dinners frequently, sometimes at home, your mother and father entertained people like Paul Anka, Bobby Darin, the Temptations, and the Everly Brothers.
Not the Temptations.
Not the Temptations. That was the Sun Times.
Little Richard, but not
Little
the Temptations.
Richard. I feel good. Did you ever think, I mean, rock and roll, one of your passions, Why didn't you go into the record business?
I did. When I was in college, I wrote and produced a song called Boogaloo News. And it reminded me why I didn't want to be in the record business. So I had the pick hit of the week on WVON in 1963. Spider Burks,
Can I get it on iTunes?
Oh, E. Rodney Jones. Anybody remember that name?
E. Rodney Jones.
E. Rodney Jones was a friend of my dad's from St. Louis. He was the top drive time disc jockey at this African American station in Chicago that the Chess Brothers owned, famous Chess Brothers from Chess Records. And I actually went down there and met with Rodney, and I had the pick hit of the week. It didn't sell. So I've tried everything, if you can't tell. I will tell you that of all of the fun things I've been able to do in my life, I spent the last 6 years as a board member of the Grammy Foundation in Los Angeles. And I was on the board with Will.i.am and Jimmy Jam and Dave Koz and really a lot of the icons of the music business. And that I still have that passion.
Uh-huh.
But no more records.
But no more records.
No.
You know, David, he came to Chicago to go to Northwestern, graduated with an MBA in 1967. You know, David mentioned a lot of your entrepreneurial activities when you were very young, from selling potholders to... that is a pattern that we see with a lot of, I mean, it is with a lot of entrepreneurs. They are, from an early age, salesmen. Is that the...
Well, I don't think you can be a great entrepreneur without being very good at sales. Selling yourself in particular, because you're always raising money, you're always selling your vision, you're always getting other people to buy in, whether it's to march behind you or with you, or to loan you money to do your thing, or to buy what you finished, or to invest. So selling goes with it. But you know, there is a question, and Carol and I talk about this in terms of entrepreneur education, and I think that's maybe what you're getting at. Are entrepreneurs born, or can you learn it?
Yeah.
And I think you can learn it. And I think there's all different kinds of entrepreneurs. There's guys like Sam Zell who don't build things but buy things and make them better, or buy things based on timing, or do financial engineering, or whatever it is. And then there are people like Steve Jobs that create an incredible revolution of new products, new technology, new way of life that affect billions of people.
Do you think, are there other traits entrepreneurs have, do you think? I mean, so they can be over across a kind of a wide cross-section in terms of business types, right?
Yeah, yes. Massive self-confidence, I would say, is one. Big egos.
But you have to feel, I mean, you do have to feel like you're going to make the next sale, or the next, you have to have the confidence that at the end of the road, the result's going to be successful. Right?
Yes, yes. And then usually 3 months later you say, oh shit, what did I get myself into? No.
Well, but it's true, but bad entrepreneurs never have, I mean, bad entrepreneurs are only self-confident, right? They don't have any analytical ability.
Yeah, but underneath it all, I can tell you that I've never seen a very good, well thought out, brilliant idea not get financed. But it's a 360-degree thing to build a successful enterprise. And I have now decided that, you know, you have to solve a big problem. You have to deliver something better than everybody else at the right price, with the right look, no matter what it is, across all businesses. I think that's really important.
Solve a big problem.
Solve a big problem.
David mentioned, then right after you graduated from Northwestern, you went to work for Hart, Schaffner and Marx.
I lasted 4 months.
You hated that job.
I hated that job.
David made it sound like it was...
I know.
I'm just saying.
I went in the Army, but I worked there 2 months before I went in the Army, 2 months...
You were in the Green Berets?
I was.
Hard to conceive that.
I know.
I don't know
Don't
why.
mess with me.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't want to have to show you anything.
But this was at a time, I mean, just to go back, real estate, not a favored part, was not part of the curriculum at all at major business schools throughout the country.
It is now, but it certainly
Then,
wasn't then. And entrepreneurship, by the way. That was like a dirty word.
They were management
Business
schools.
is bad.
Yeah.
It was middle management schools.
Let me shift as I'm, so how did you get from 4 months at Hart, Shafter and Marks to working for Hawthorne Realty?
So my brother was living in St. Louis, and I went to his wedding, and one of his groomsmen said, "I'd like to move to Chicago. I want to be in real estate." So I started making calls for him while I was still at Hart, Shafter and Marks. And I was told Jerry Gottlieb and Joe Beal were starting a company. They're looking for people with no experience. And I said, that sounds good for me. And so I took the job. That's how I got started. And 2 years later, I was president and partner in the company. And it took me 5 years to get out of it, but that's another story.
But industrial real estate, you know, I mean, doesn't have, certainly its image, I think, has improved in recent times. But then it was a bunch of guys with pocket protectors, you know.
$1.25 a foot and 3 loading docks.
Yeah.
That's all you had to remember.
Yeah.
And you had to be a good driver. You had to get the guy in the car and drive. But so I expanded from that. In the first year, I started buying land in the East-West Tollway, and then I started buying land in Lake County. I started buying land in Will County with pension funds in the very first days of ERISA.
How many thousand acres?
6.
6,000 acres.
Yeah. I was in my 26 or 27. And we still have a lot of it today. It's been a great investment.
Because with Hawthorne, you know, did you, I mean, you immediately kind of, now Hawthorne was both a brokerage and a development company, but you kind of immediately kind of gravitated toward the development end.
I did. To the I would call it the equity side.
Yeah.
Joe Beal used to have a phrase that brokers die broke, and that resonated with me.
Yeah. Let me now shift to technology. Because in recent years, you have been an active investor in tech firms. When you're, two examples, one, Clever Safe. In 2006, you were part of the first round there. That's a company that, data storage company. More recently, last year, I think in November, you were part of a group invested $700,000 in Retrofit.
Retrofit Me.
What's that?
Retrofit Me.
Retrofit Me Too?
No, it's called Retrofit Me.
And that's a digital weight loss company.
Yeah.
I can look at my phone and lose weight.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you, in tech investments, what do you look for?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure Retrofit Me is a tech investment, but I'll go over it. But again, solving big problems. So the amount of data.
This is on Clever Safe.
Clever Safe. The amount of data that needs to be stored every year is growing by 60% a year. If you think about your Visa and MasterCard and the IRS and all the times you use your computer and your iPad, all that's got to be stored somehow when you got a recall. And so Clever Safe at IIT was conceived by a Chicagoan, who was actually the guy that invented downloading music. And he invented an algorithm and software to store massive amounts of data, and is now got 100 employees at Riverside Plaza and is selling to people like who you would expect him to be selling to.
This is Chris Gladwin.
Chris Gladwin. The chairman is Chris Galvin from Motorola. And I think it's going to be an important Chicago company. I'm hopeful anyway. Retrofit Me is, you know, obesity is one of the biggest problems in America. It's embarrassing. It's awful. It's causing a lot of our health problems. and an entrepreneur.
But I thought earlier eating too much was a good idea.
Yeah, I used to think so too before I sold my company. But
The dessert cart.
the dessert
Who
cart.
thought up the dessert
Right.
cart?
The same guy that thought up the weight loss thing. Remember the old Bo Diddley song about the woman was so ugly, the doctor paid her to stand out in front of the doctor's office to make people sick? So retrofit me, the concept, again, a big problem, but is to, by use of electronic devices, to let you talk to the greatest weight loss experts in the world anytime you want by appointment, but from your hotel room, if you're a businessman late at night, you're in Seattle on a business trip, and you want to talk to Dr. Kessler at the Northwestern Obesity Clinic, you dial up and you get an appointment, and by Skype, you talk about stuff. And you have a Fitbit, you have a digital scale, so that if you don't get on the scale, you get an email that says, why didn't you get on the scale? And if you get on the scale, they can follow your progress. Very interesting company, and there's another round of financing right now that we're lucky to have New World Ventures in Chicago, and they're leading the next round. So this could be a big, nice company.
The investors in 06 included Craig Duchessois, who was also an investor with you in a less fortunate deal, Divine, the incubator. What did you learn? I can't remember what he invested, but I think you invested $2.7 million. What did you learn from the Divine experience?
I don't think I invested that much, but maybe I did. I hope
Reportedly.
not. I hope not. What did I learn? Be careful what you believe. You know, we all got caught up in the dot bomb, and it was Chicago's, technology incubator laboratory. I saw Flip Filipowski a lot. He's a very nice guy, but I think it was impossible for him to deliver what he promised, and he got caught up in it as well. So, I would hope Craig invested more than I did. Not because he lost, but because he should. Because he can.
We'll turn to questions from the audience in 1 minute, and I'll just begin. We have a couple questions from the registration site. And one question, and we started to touch on when you talked about the buying land in the suburbs. The Allstate campus in Hoffman Estates is being demolished. The Kraft building campus in Glenview and Morton Grove is being redeveloped. David Idle, are you here? David asks, what does this tell you about the future of the suburbs?
That's an interesting question because...
Thank David.
Thank you, David.
We finally got one good one.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited about the future of the city, and I think that the Motorola move to the merchandise mart is a game changer, and I think it's the final recognition that we have a very vibrant city with neighborhoods that none of us ever thought people would want to live in. And it's the young people that are the future labor force that are going to populate these companies. And I think it has some negative implications for the suburbs.
Maybe a good time to buy land then in the suburbs.
You know, land, as you've heard, it takes a long time for anything good to happen. And only when somebody wants to do something is a land investment. There's only one way to make money in land: build something or sell it for more than you paid for it, and it's a tough way to go. Even though I keep doing it.
Is there in particular, right now you're feeling pretty confident, I guess, about the downtown office market. So this would be a bearish view about the suburban office market.
A more bearish view, more than the city.
Yeah, and what do you think accounts? You talk about Motorola moving to the mart.
And I think Motorola is the first of many.
Why do you think that?
Because I know.
Well, but
but I'm not telling it to any reporters.
Okay. How about if we just leave the room, the four of us, and then you tell everybody else? The question from the audience? I got another one from the registration site. Question for Larry? Yes, all the way in the back.
You explained, Larry, how difficult it was from '08 until now actually to get commercial money on a loan. They have the bank. And I just sent 250 pages of documents just to refi my own home in the last 2 months. Do you see this loosening up? Or do you see a change in the next few years?
So the question is, do you see the financial markets loosening up? And I can tell you, I've worked on lots of financing in the last 3 months. The answer is absolutely yes. There is a huge amount of money in banks. They can't make any money lending it to the Fed or lending it to other banks. And there's now lots of competition for deals. And I'm not saying that every deal can be financed, and certainly most of the deals that got financed in the mid-2000s shouldn't have been financed. So, but the good deals, yes, can be financed, and I think you're going to find housing finance is going to be much easier over the next few years. Can't be any harder, obviously. And if you can do the 35% equity test, I think there's all kinds of competition for the 65% part. And for River Point, every bank is calling. You know, very disappointed that we don't even want to talk about it right now. We're just heads down to get the building started. But yes, I do think that, and I think the smaller banks are very active, and the big banks are back in the market. It's very surprising. I'm as shocked as you are to be
What's your
saying.
take on the economy? Are we going to continue to weaken through the 2013, the beginning of 2013? Are we?
I don't know. The answer to the question, are you better off than 4 years ago, which you didn't ask, in real estate, the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, the world was falling apart. Couldn't be any worse. I mean, it just, cap rates were terrible. Nobody believed anybody. We all looked alike. We're all terrible. And so real estate, it's definitely better. Real estate and autos, I think, is going to lead us out of whatever we're in. I think we got issues with the fiscal cliff. I think we got issues of leadership all the way down the line. So if we get a little courage, if you read Thomas Friedman's articles, they're phenomenal about what we need to do to get this country back under control. But I do think we're going to be okay somehow. I always do, though. Don't take it seriously.
Because you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And an optimist.
We actually have a healthcare question.
Okay.
Mitch Santiago from Towers Watson. Mitch, are you here this morning? Mitch is all the way in the back. What do you see as the impact of healthcare reform on employers like Levy restaurants? And in particular, I guess the question goes to the employer mandate, which requires employers to either provide health insurance or pay a penalty.
Yeah.
Or a tax, depending on whether you're the Supreme Court or not.
Yeah, I think it's really affecting hiring right now. And I think a lot of companies are hesitating, knowing that they're going to have to pay a lot of money to keep the people. And if you've ever had to fire people in Europe, it's impossible. You can't do it. It's expensive. It's ridiculous. It's, you know, it doesn't. In Mexico, I've had to fire people. It's very difficult. So I do think it's holding back. However, our current system is broken. I'm on the board of Northwestern Hospital, and 35% of the people don't pay. So what does that mean? That means the 65% of the people are paying for the 35% of the people. Everybody gets health care, but they get it in the emergency room for an asthma attack instead of the wonderful asthma care products we have now.
A couple other things I just wanted to mention. One is talking about dumb ideas. You once launched an afternoon newspaper.
That was my brother. I don't have to answer that question.
started in the spring of 1986, shut
Next
down.
question.
January 1987. Well, and why I have you here, when you bought Hillman's, it included Gapers Catering, great reputation, purchased it in 1981. 1986, sold Gapers. I just want to point out, this isn't a question, but I want to point out that the Crain's headline was, their management recipe fails, so Levy's sells Gapers.
Yeah.
That was 1986.
Selling is a euphemism. We gave it away. Hillman's was in the block that became Block 37, and I was trying to assemble that block. And when I went to buy the building, they said, for $1 more, we'll give you Gapers and Hillman's and Stop and Shop. So we weren't highly motivated to, and they were in horrible financial condition. And Crain's didn't always get it right, as you know, Tom.
Well, and I mentioned that in part because a young reporter wrote that story named David Snyder.
Like I said, Crain's didn't always get it right. How do you get promoted?
Well, people ask me, why are we so mean?
Yeah.
Next question.
Good question.
Yeah. Next question. We have time for one more.
There's one right here.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Out of all your
Morning.
business dealings or life dealings, what has been your no review mirror in life? What was your worst deal or worst mistake you did that you look back and say helped me in the long term?
You know, before we did this, Tom agreed not to ask me that question. And now I have to answer that question. I think I already talked about it, the 2008 disappointment with River Point, and the most exciting recovery is the 2012 start of construction of River Point in a better economy with more prospects than I've ever seen a building have. And but that would be my answer. I've had a lot of, you know what they say, entrepreneurs don't have failures. We only have very expensive learning experiences. And if we had another 2 hours, I could go over those for you.
Larry, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom. My pleasure.